My name is Anders, and I'm a filmmaker from Sweden. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about a kind of free-flowing talk about like inspiration, but also my personal inspiration, but also a little bit about working with narrative filmmaking on a very like do-it-yourself micro-budget level. And with me, I have my sidekick in films and in life, Per Hasselström.
Hello, I'm Per. By day, I'm a programmer. By night, I shoot movies together with Anders.
And we have and Per has shot like every shot here in these screenshots. So we work a lot together. So it's natural that he's here, and he's also going to chime in when he thinks I'm telling the wrong story. And I know that in the program it says like making anime feature films as a headline for this talk, and that's kind of untrue, but kind of true. but this is a better title, I think. Anime and fandom inspired do-it-yourself filmmaking, because this is not about doing like Makoto Shinkai or Studio Ghibli films. This is doing like very down and dirty underground filmmaking. And as I said, my name is Anders, and I have a homepage. If you want to see every work that I refer to in this talk is linked on my homepage. And I have a background in TV production. I started making films when I was in my early teens, buying a Hitachi Hi8 camcorder. This was just before digital, and doing like very like Hong Kong John Woo inspired action films with my young cousins. And then I moved to Stockholm. I'm originally from Västerås. It's the 6th or 7th biggest city in Sweden. And I moved to Stockholm and started working with a lot with media and digital content. I'm born in the early 80s. So this was in the mid-2000s when media started to go from analog to digital, and everything moved online. So I worked both with music and advertising, and a lot with TV production. Me and my friends we had a media movement called La Vida Low Cash, and we started very early on YouTube, around like 2006, 2007, and then we started to work with like real TV production for SVT, for example. That's the Swedish answer to DR, public service television. But then a couple of years ago, I stopped working in the commercial TV business and pivoted more towards artistic work. And since I'm one of my biggest passions in life is Japanese animation. Naturally, I take a lot of inspiration from anime, and I made a lot of music videos the last 7-8 years, and a couple of short films and a feature. And the first real short film I made it was called Asuka Attacks Herself, and it was released in 2020. And it's around 15 minutes, and it's a film inspired by, based on my good friend Tanja Suhinina's writings. And Tanja is a Swedish psychologist and writer, and she mainly writes about human relations and sexual relations, but she's also a big anime fan, and we have known each other since we were teens in the Swedish anime scene. So she's really interested in the series Neon Genesis Evangelion. So she has written a lot about the characters in that series. So we made me and Per and our friend Mori, who's a cosplayer, made a film about focusing on the character of Asuka.
And this movie is up on YouTube in its entirety, so you could check it out after this if you want to.
And that kind of started the aesthetic that me and Per have worked with since then. The aesthetic of like something between 2D and 3D, like between animation and live action. It is live action. It's not animation, but it's not like realistic filmmaking in that sense. And you will see that when we show clips from our films. You will see what I mean with that. And I run 2 record labels. Beat the Beat, that's a more like hard dance rave record label, and Rocklunda, that's more like a pop rock label that I run together with my brother Kalle J, who's a Swedish pop artist. And I made like most of the music videos connected to those record labels. And it was a way for me and for Per, who shot many of them, to ease into this like type of filmmaking. And those music videos we made together, maybe 15 music videos, they led eventually to our first feature film, Places That Were Anime to Me, that premiered last year, and it has been shown in the US at Otakon, the big anime convention in Washington DC, and it has been shown in Norway, Sweden and Finland. And tomorrow at 9:30 p.m. in the Sora room, it will have its Danish premiere. So, and I will show the trailer in the end of this talk. So, and we also work, both me and Per work with other filmmakers to help them produce their work. And a couple of years ago, I produced a short film for our friend Stef Gaines, who's a really fantastic Swedish illustrator and comic artist. Her feature film debut. And
this one is also on YouTube.
Yeah,
J-popcon. It's really good. Check it out.
Yeah, exactly. That is on YouTube, and this is also on YouTube. Dirty Machines: The End of History. That's directed maybe like five or 6 years ago. It was released 5 years ago. It's a short science fiction film that's made by our friend David Matthew Olson. So he's an American filmmaker that lives in Sweden since a couple of years back. And this actually became like a viral hit. I think it has like 300,000 views, and that's really big when it comes to this type of filmmaking. But this is a really special film, and Per helped with photography there, and I helped produce it. And then we both have an ongoing working relationship with Daniel Hållquist, who's a Swedish kind of micro-budget hero that has made 4 feature films now, I think. I think it's the 4th one that we shot this spring. And he does it on like super micro budgets with small teams. We shot this film that's like an erotic vampire film in 7 days.
Yeah, 7 days locked into an apartment. You get to know each other real well.
And I think we was like 5 people in the team.
Yeah.
So you get like an idea on the level that we work with. It's not at the biggest level, but it's very specific, and it leads to a lot of creative freedom and a way to just get your like very specific ideas out there. And I will just to get you an idea on the aesthetic that we worked through together, me and Per. I will show a show reel and with clips from both our music videos and our feature film or film work. And Per has shot maybe like 80% of the clips in this video, and I've directed them. And as you saw, that I also like to mix in old analog video equipment with the digital to get a very specific look.
I couldn't help notice that you looked kind of naked in the woods there.
I was naked in the woods, and this was actually not far away from here. This is from a music video I did for my brother a couple of years ago when he lived in Malmö. So this is in Bokskogen outside of Malmö. It's just a couple of kilometers from here over the Öresund. I was playing Näcken. I don't know if you have do you have Näcken in Denmark? Yeah, a folk creature that lures people with his playing. And as you saw, as I said, we like to mix like analog and digital footage, and some of the material I've shot with my old camcorder that I mentioned earlier, and like a DV cam from the late 90s. And I'm going to talk a little bit about like being inspired by anime, and the natural. I've thought about this a lot lately, because the natural thing, like if someone grows up and is very, very passionate about animation and anime specifically, usually that takes leads to them wanting to draw or make like real animation. But I've never been particularly interested in drawing. That was not my like. Most of the people grown like when we were younger and being inspired by anime manga, they wanted to draw manga, and both me and Per has really many good friends that is very experienced like illustrators in a manga style. But for me, it hasn't been. It wasn't always about the drawings themselves. It was more like an aesthetical feeling that I got from anime, and that may sound weird, but when you break it down, it's quite logical, because there are not many, but you have filmmakers that work in both Japanese animation and live action. The one, for example, is Mamoru Oshii, that made Ghost in the Shell, and he made 2 of the Urushiatsura alum films. He made the Pat Labor films, and he has had like a parallel career as an animation director, but also made live action, mostly low budget films like this one, Talking Head, for example. And if you think about it, it's quite logical, because this type of visual filmmaking almost always starts with a storyboard. And a storyboard is like a visual script. First, you all know the script, that it's written text, and then the next step is usually that you make a storyboard. You do like a sequential like images describing what you want the scenes to look like. And if someone like Mamoru Oshii makes a storyboard, it doesn't really matter. Like, he makes a storyboard, and then he either executes it by giving it to an animation studio and letting them animate drawings, or going out with a team and doing live action. So it's that type of filmmaking that inspires me. And there is also, of course, another type of live action filmmaking that is more improvised visually. That is more like, let's just go out and film this, and then you don't really plan the images beforehand.
Yeah. For example, Daniel Hållquist, who made a vampire horror movie, he doesn't care that much about the visual. He's more focused on the script and the actors, and trying to kind of get a tension going between the actors. And for the vampire movie, he just left the visual to me to do whatever I wanted.
Yeah, me and Per were the second unit, so we did a lot of the visual stuff, and that made us very happy, because we love doing like cool images.
Running around in the woods.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a good example, and that's also the reason I love to be assistant director to directors that work in another way that I do. With Daniel, for example, I've learned a lot with working with actors, because I usually don't work with actors. I work with models or cosplayers, and I don't usually work with dialogue. So And also that both me and Per was very inspired by Hong Kong filmmaking from the 90s, and that is almost like live action animation a lot of times. We have the film Future Cops to left there, one of my favorite films of all time, where they in an unlicensed way used a lot of characters from Japanese pop culture like Street Fighter and Dragon Ball, and then we have the Monkey King Chinese Odyssey films with Stephen Chow from the 90s. That's also almost like a live action cartoon. So with inspirations like that, it's logical that my type of filmmaking is focused more like using actors as almost as animated characters. And as I said, I usually work with cosplayers instead of actors. And of course you can cast an actor and then you can order a cosplay costume and put them in it. But the best, but the advantage of working with cosplayers is that we usually work on very low budget, as I said, and we usually don't have a costume designer on set. We don't have a makeup artist. So cosplayers is usually that's what they do, right? They style themselves, they do their makeup. So when you work with a person that has experience in cosplay, you can make very, very cheap knockoff like eBay, AliExpress wigs and costumes, ready-made costumes, look very good as they do on the Murdoch cosplay. The cosplayer that's featured in our feature film here, because she knows, she's an experienced cosplayer, she knows how to style a wig, she knows how to style these kind of cheap costumes to make them look good. And also in both the feature film and the Asuka film, we mixed some of the costumes were made by the actors, cosplayers themselves, and some were kind of ready-made. For example, this plug suit is like a ready-made plug suit for $150 from eBay, and it looks good in the finished film. But Per can attest to like it smells and it's the same fabric as a beach ball.
Yeah, it looks like it's gonna break any second.
And that's movie magic with great like styling. Costume styling and great lighting and great photography by Per, you can make it look good even if it's cheap stuff. And I'm going to talk a little bit about working on the level we are working on, and what do we mean when we say do-it-yourself filmmaking. We mean a filmmaking that's micro-budget, and micro-budget in a filmmaking sense, it is still money. But it is not the usual money that you think you need to have to make a feature film, for example.
I mean, we're talking about homemade movies.
Yeah. Homemade movies, but with an ambition. Like I see myself, like Per is a director of photography on feature films, and I am a filmmaker. We are filmmakers, but we are as ambitious as the people working in Hollywood or fully financed Danish or Swedish films. But we are shooting in my apartment with ready-made eBay costumes, but we are still as ambitious. And often the thing you can do, the thing you have to do with working with this kind of, or the thing you can allow yourself to have when you're working on a low-budget level is to have a niche audience. You don't need everyone in the nation to see your film because it doesn't cost that much. And of course, the thing that is very apparent nowadays, and the reason we can do feature films on the level we are working, and Daniel is working, is that the production nowadays is 100% digital and very cheap compared to making movies just 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, when it comes to equipment, I think cameras and microphones and stuff like that, there's a tier that is usually called like the prosumer tier, where, you know, the equipment is accessible for anyone to buy that has a job anyways, and it releases good results. I mean, the camera I'm mainly shooting with is the Panasonic Lumix GH5, and that's a workhorse that, you know, gets the job done. Shoots 4K, yeah, everything you need, basically.
And it's also, the interesting part is that what hasn't changed is what you can do when you have a camera house that's relatively cheap, like a Lumix GH5, is that you can put your money, instead of put your money on the film as you did back in the day, the physical film, you can put your money in the lens package. So the lens package is very important to make it look good.
Yeah, and stuff like that is also rentable in various shops and so on.
And also that everyone in the and that's also the pro tip for us as filmmakers, if you want to start making films, is that learn a little bit of everything. And nowadays the level, like the basic level on learning this stuff is not as high as it used to be, because the equipment is cheaper. So for everyone, like you can buy a microphone that's okay, and I'm not a sound person in any way. And actually, this image, this is me and my friend Linus, that was one of the photographers on Stef's film that we mentioned. The sound on that day was bad because I took it, but I still did it. I still was the boom guy for one shooting day because it's kind of basic, and also one thing that you can save a lot of money from is location, because studio rental is expensive, and with these kind of relatively cheap lights and backdrops, you can shoot in an apartment. And this is from a short film we did with Daniel when we were in the forest, and we have shot a lot of stuff in the forest.
Yeah. Which is actually the most complicated things we've done in terms of like hauling gear, make sure that we have like food and water,
charging batteries, etc.
Yeah.
Everything is harder in the forest, but I think it's the same. Do you have allemansrätt, right to roam in Denmark? You can go out in the forest and do anything. Yeah, it's the same in Sweden. So that's not the case in a lot of countries. In the US, for example, and I don't think it's the case in like Hong Kong or China either. So I don't know. But in the US, I know that you can't do that. So that's advantage of being a Scandinavian filmmaker. They can go out in the forest. And then this green image, for example, like there's a lot of like cheap lights and other equipment you can buy cheaply. So the production side has never been like more accessible than it is now. But
I think there is like you start with the camera, and then over the years you build up an inventory of gear. If you would buy everything in one go, then we're talking about real money, of course.
But you can always, like, if you live in a bigger city, there are always rental houses, as Per mentioned. Here in Copenhagen, there is probably many rental houses you can go to and rent a camera, or even if you have like you own a cheap camera, you can rent lenses over the day or lighting, for example. But even films on our level cost money, and where does the money come from when it comes to film? And I just, because this is everybody knows that you need a camera and lighting to make a film, and actors, but a lot of people doesn't know a lot about the financing of film. So here's a kind of fast crash course in film financing. And film can be financed in many ways, but the most traditional ways, like in Scandinavia, is a mix between private equity and public funding. Because we have, both in Sweden and Denmark, we have a film institute, and the film institute in both countries is the role is to just push film as an art form, and part of that is financing films. They almost never fully finance films, but Swedish Film Institute, for example, in some films they put in a lot of money. But that is, and there's, I guess there's a lot of discussion about the Film Institute here in Denmark too. But in Swedish Film Institute, it's like if you ask anyone who works with film, it doesn't matter on what level, everybody has an opinion about the Swedish Film Institute.
And not a positive opinion,
no,
maybe.
That opinion is usually, oh, why don't they give me money? And so on our level, it's hard to, but when we do stuff like we do on the low budgets we work, it's not even, almost even like, it's not like, it's not an idea to go to the Swedish Film Institute, because their money, like they give more money to short films than like the budget of 5 of our films. So you need to, I'm not saying it's impossible, but you need to have, you know that you've got to put in a lot of work just having meetings, just sending in budgets, instead of doing the actual filmmaking. So, but I like that, of course, I'm for public financing of films, but you can discuss how it is executed. And that discussion is in Sweden, everyone, the only thing everyone talks about when it comes to filmmaking is how, especially nowadays, the last couple of years, is how is the Swedish Film Institute using their money. But as I said, on our level, in the type of niche content we make, we usually don't have any contact with that level of film politics. But there are regional film politics too. For example, I got a small sum, around 10,000 Danish, for my film, our feature film. But for me, it was a big part of the film's budget. And that was from my local, my hometown's regional film politics in Västmanland. And then, of course, in both Denmark and Sweden, public service TV is really traditionally really strong, and they also finance a lot of films, especially SVT. A lot of the films being made are partially financed by the fact that SVT buys the TV rights for them, and I guess it's the same with VR too. And then there's also when you finance like a more costly film, you often maybe you co-finance it like different countries. For example, there was the Stockholm Bloodbath film that came like last year, and that's a co-production between Sweden and Denmark, because it was probably too expensive to find the money in just one country, and that is very common when it comes to especially European more high budget films, that they are co-production between different countries, because in the US, in Hollywood, the film studios, at least now, we'll see in the future, but Disney and Fox, etc., they have money to burn to finance a film themselves, but there are not like those budget levels. In the European level, you need to have a lot of production companies going together, and that's the reason when you watch a European film, there is like almost like 50 logos in the end credits.
That goes for any country.
Yeah.
Chinese movies, Japanese movies. If it's a high budget, then you get a lot of logos in the beginning.
And that's the traditional way to finance films. The thing that has happened the last 10, 15 years is not only that the actual film production gear has become less expensive. It is also the internet has also allowed filmmakers to connect with their audience directly in a way that wasn't wasn't able, they weren't able to do before. For example, there is some of the micro-budget filmmakers we're gonna mention at the end of the talk. They don't do like traditional film financing, and most of them are in countries like Japan and US that doesn't have film financing basically the same way we have it in Scandinavia. So they do, like Sean Donahue for Gator Blade Films, for example. He does almost exclusively his films, like finance them a little bit himself, but also does crowdfunding. And if you are on that level that you can do a film for around like 50,000 Danish kroner that Sean does, you can actually make that happen. You can't finance Stockholm Bloodbath through crowdfunding because it costs 100 Danish. But if you do a film that costs 50,000 Danish, you can do that. And there is, of course, a tradition with self-financed micro-budget films. We have filmmakers in the exploitation filmmakers in the 70s in the US, like Andy Milligan, for example. And this is, I love this expression, gutter auteur. Auteur is a French expression for like a very artistic director, and gutter is of course the gutter. So you can be an auteur in the gutter, in the trenches, and we have modern filmmakers like Dennis Reed, for example, that does a version of that nowadays that makes films for very cheap for a super niche audience. Dennis Reed and his friends makes films exclusively for young African American audiences in the like mid like cities like Chicago and Houston, for example. And that is a niche audience, but since the films are very cheap, they can make a profit because they don't need everyone in the US to see it. They need like, I don't know, 10,000 people in Chicago or Houston or Baltimore to see them, and then they make a profit. So that's also, there is a very different ways to finance films, and there is also different ways to distribute a film, because you have made a film, you have financed a film, you have produced it, but who's going to see it, and where are you going to see it? Traditional way to distribute a film is, of course, first in the cinema, then home video, streaming nowadays, and in Denmark you have Nordisk Filmbiografer, the big cinema chain. And if you do make a film on a high budget level financed by the Danish Film Institute, you often need to get the money, you need to have a plan to distribute it widely all over the country. But that is also very risky. It costs a lot. There's a big risk to book cinemas and then don't sell any tickets. So on our level, it's not an idea to, if the film costs under 50,000 Danish, there's no reason to book cinemas and risk losing 100,000 of kroner. So on the level Dennis Reed, for example, works, is that it's directly to streaming. Or you can, they usually do that, they book cinemas themselves just to get the film out there and to the hardcore fans. And we do that too, like you have like Daniel Hållquist, for example, he works exclusively with streaming, with this Tubi, Plex, these free ad finance streamers, but he usually like rents a cinema to have a friends and family screening, just to say that it's just to say that, oh, okay, it is been shown in the cinema, but the business is made on these streaming sites, and you can also put it up on YouTube. It's harder to earn money on YouTube if you're a small player, but you still get the film out there. And for the film we're gonna show tomorrow, that me and Per made, places that were under to me, I've chosen to self-distribute it fully. So right now it premiered in July in Närcon, with the image from that premiere there, and then I have showed it in Norway, for example. So I showed it in Närcon for 70 people, and I showed it in Norway for 7 people, and I don't know how many people is going to see it tomorrow, but that's the hustle. That's you got to get your film out there, and on this level, everyone who sees it, it's a win.
Yeah, and I mean, for the movie Tomorrow specifically, it uses a bunch of trademark characters and so on, so that's never gonna make money. And it's even like putting it up on YouTube, maybe it will get hit by strikes.
Yeah, and it's the same with Asuka too. And with Asuka Attacks Herself, we didn't send it to film festivals because we know that a lot of film festivals has a policy against fan films. So working working with existing IP, it's also hard to get clearance to distribute it. But one very important thing that me and Per have talked a lot about, and also Daniel, our friend, have talked about, is that when you work on this level, it's okay that your inspiration is the biggest films ever, that you love Marvel, you love Nolan's Batman films, you love Spielberg, you love Studio Ghibli, but you can't aim for that when you make a film for 50,000 Danish kroner. You have to have inspirations in your level, on your level, and there are a lot of people doing super interesting stuff in the vein that we are working in. We have to the left we have a film called Call of the Unseen. It's a Swedish film that was released a couple of years ago, directed by Henrik Pilerud, and it's made in English, but it's a Swedish production. To my understanding, mostly self-financed by Henrik himself. And Henrik is a very experienced cosplayer, has competed in Nordic Cosplay Championship many times. And it shows in this film because it's low budget. I think it's a little bit higher budget than most of the other films here, but it's still a very low budget film considering the scope of it. It's a big epic fantasy film. But since Henrik has experience in costume making, you can see that in the film because there's a lot of very interesting production design and costumes in it. So there's a high recommend for that film. I think it streams in Denmark. I think it's on VOD here, and there is also very interesting, very inspiring resources for podcasts. Of course, there are a lot of YouTube tutorials for filmmaking, and that goes without saying. That's really important to, if you want to know how to light a film, or shoot a film, or edit a film, you can go to YouTube. But there are also very specific resources for just when you have made your film, how do you get it out there? This podcast, Just Screen It, is really inspiring because the host interviews filmmakers from mostly super low budget, self-financed, micro budget filmmakers, and talks about the process, how they have got their films out there.
They're often also open about how much stuff costs and how much money they made. So you get a really good insight into the business of this level of movie making, if you want to hear more.
And that's very interesting because they are clear with the money, because there's a lot of, in this business, there's a lot of flexing, capping. It's it costs a lot of insincerity when it comes to actually what people make on these films. And that's Colin that hosts that podcast is often very upfront and ask people actually, okay, what did this cost? What did you bring in? And another favorite podcast of mine is The Movie Crypt with Adam Green and Joe Lynch, and they are two very experienced, established filmmakers that works mostly in the horror action genre, and they are very open with their own struggle being a filmmaker. Like, being a filmmaker is not a job, it's more of a lifestyle that comes with its ups and downs, and they are very honest when it comes to that. And they also have guests in every episode, and it ranges from very like directors that direct big studio films to these like micro budget auteurs. So a big recommend. It's The Movie Crypt is also a lot of journalism about film. It's more, I think it's a lot of very shallow. It's like, oh, this is a good film, this is a bad film, but these two podcasts goes down to the nitty-gritty of what it means to actually make film. And we have some other interesting filmmakers that are super inspired to me and Per. For example, our friend Bueno, who's Canadian from the beginning, but lives in Japan since like 20 years back.
He shoots porn.
Yeah. That's his day job.
Yeah.
AV. He shoots adult videos, and then he as a camera assistant or something. And then he on the weekends he makes these very elaborate like tokusatsu kind of Ultraman, Power Rangers inspired films that takes the children's show aesthetics of these masked heroes shows and adds a lot of violence and nudity and just goofiness to them. So a totally unique filmmaker that works on, I don't know exactly the budget levels he works on, but it's mostly, I think there's a lot of people that actually works on these Kamen Rider, Ultraman, Power Rangers shows that works on Buenos films on the side.
Yeah, I mean the stunt people probably want to do things at the side.
And more like adult, kind of off-the-cuff stuff. And then we have Steve Rudzinski, who's a filmmaker from Pittsburgh that runs a production company together with his wife, Eileen Isley, that's also often the lead actress in his work. And he also makes very live, he describes his films as live-action cartoons. And they are very realistic, very very fun films. And he has also made several Power Rangers pastiche films. And also his most known work is the Carousel trilogy. It's a trilogy about a carousel horse that starts killing. That begins with killing people in parts 1. And then becomes the hero in parts 2 and 3. And they're very special, very fun films. And he also makes a lot of films with his cat, so like children's films, that he films his cat and then he adds voiceover. And I mentioned Sean Donahue and Gatorblade Films earlier, and they are part of a movement in Florida, around the Tampa area in West Florida, with filmmakers that makes very, very sleazy micro-budget films that is very fun and cartoony. And there is also a production company called Reaper Films, and Sleazebox, and all of these guys know each other and helps each other with their films. And he has made he usually works with a cosplayer called Sushi Savet Holder. That's his leading lady in most of his films, and she's a really fun, good actor. And those films are films like Swamp Woman and Satan Lives, The Rise of the Illuminati Hotties. And the interesting part of these films is that Sean has said, and I think this is very important, he said that when you are making films on this level, and your competition is films that cost 100,000 times more, and has their marketing budget is what your full budget is like 1/100th of their marketing budget, or 1,000th of the marketing budget. You need to offer something that these films can't offer. And that is very important because like on this level you can't do like a superhero film that competes with Marvel, and you can't do like a drama that competes with a drama with like real seasoned actors. But you I think it's like we have 5 minutes left, but we are finished now.
Interrupting. Is everything okay?
Yeah, everything okay.
Okay, great. I was supposed to check up on you.
Yeah, thank you. No, but you can't compete with big Hollywood blockbusters, but you can do a film like Swamp Woman or Satan Lives. So like you can offer like extensive like gore effects and extensive nudity like Sean and Gatorblade does in their films. So and you don't need to do that, of course, when you make films like that. You can do your own niche. It doesn't have to be like exploitation films, but that is just one thing that you can offer that the mainstream films can't offer. Yeah. Just to end with, this is our friend Daniel that we have referred to many times, and he actually wrote a manifesto last year with inspiration for underground filmmakers, building on the experience he has had making, I think it's 4 feature films now on a very, very low budget.
Yeah, just a comment. Obviously, you don't need to read everything, but before there, things will go wrong often. That's so true. I mean, we haven't gone into like the process of shooting, but very much it has been a lot of business talk. But just shooting a movie, it's a series of accidents that hopefully at the end can be put together into a movie. It's just random crap happening all the time.
And what you do with the bigger budget is that you can buy yourself away from these problems. But if you don't have that money, you have to think of solutions.
And of course, with experience, you kind of realize that if you put your bag down and go away, then suddenly your bag is going to be 50 meters away when you need to switch a lens or whatever. So yeah, details like that you need to learn just by doing.
Or it will be on screen, like it has happened for us many times. So, oh, that is a bag. And as I said, we will show our feature film tomorrow, and we will also answer questions if you have any after the film. And it's tomorrow at 9:30 in the Sora room. It's on this floor. Do we have time? Yeah, we have time, I think, until 10. Should we show the trailer for the film? It's just 2 minutes.
Jo, det är så här, jag är intresserad av så här, japanska grejer, så här, musik och serier och filmer och så här.
Vi har samlats här idag för att tillkännage en ny era. Vår era. A new anime century.
Cosplay. Dräktlek. Att leka sin kropp in i en annan fas. De sydde vingar och lyfte som änglar över förorterna. Lämnade oss andra där nere med andan i halsen.
Det händer absolut ingenting här. Och liksom det här är bara liksom en sträcka tills jag kan flytta hemifrån.
Vi tog loss melodierna, historierna, livet ur dessa filmer och spel. Gjorde dem till det viktigaste i våra unga liv.
Det var så kul att kolla igenom Galaxy Expressen med dig. Det är verkligen ett fint minne. Vi delade en plats i rymden tillsammans under ett kort ögonblick.
Dessa fickor i stadslandskapet, gömda sträckor mellan punkterna där livet händer, de förvandlades till platser som var anime för mig. Makroslåten nummer... Vilken var det? Den tycker jag är bäst. Men jag tycker också om de här. Från Gunbuster.
Young Anders.
So if you want to see exclusive private camera footage of me being a teenager with long hair, you can come tomorrow to the soda room. Thank you so much for letting us talk to you this evening. Do any of you have any questions about technical stuff or non-technical stuff or thoughts or ideas?
Any socials where we can find you?
Yeah. AndersHäger.com, and Per doesn't have an own homepage, but most of his work is with me on AndersHäger.com. So it's just that there is links to all the films, and this film hasn't. I will keep this film in the screening cinema window as long as I can, because I don't really have a place for it. As Per said, we can't really put it up on streamers because there's a lot of unlicensed stuff in it, and on YouTube.
I mean, the intent is to put it on YouTube eventually, right?
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens when we do that.
Yeah, but conventions still want to screen it, so I think it's better to screen it and then talk with people face to face. So, but eventually it will be available to screen. Then I hope I see you at the screening tomorrow, and I wish you a nice evening. Thanks for listening.